Welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon and I'm the host of A Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. And welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Sharon, and welcome to our special guests, two staff members from Mount Barker South Primary School. Welcome Tamara Biddle, a foundation year teacher, and Hayley Allen, a student support officer. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hello.
We
Hello.
are so happy to have you here. Out of your natural environment, we're usually in the classroom together with your gorgeous group of how many children?
I have 18 this year.
18. So 18 foundation students working with these two. All right.
So Sharon's been working with you in your classrooms this year and the year before, and you're here today because you've been initiating some fabulous writing experiences with your students. And especially this year, things have started to take off. But before we talk about this, can you say a few things about your backgrounds?
Sure. Shall I start?
Yes. Thanks, Tamara.
So I originally worked in childcare for 10 years before doing my teaching degree, and then started officially teaching in 2017 at Mount Barker South, and I've been there ever since. So I have taught a few different age groups, but mainly receptions and year ones.
Yes. So you've always been in the early year space, which is perfect with your background.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
being in the childcare. And Hayley, you come via some interesting...
Yes. A lot of life experiences, but then having a child and settling down and becoming part of the education system through teaching swimming first and then moving into the SSO role and meeting Tamara and working with her on and off, and then blessed again this year to be working with her again.
Yes. So you've had a lot of experience together in the classrooms. And actually, I think this is probably an interesting thing for people to know too, that at Mount Barker South, there is an SSO assigned to each class for how much time?
We try and have the first term covered with a SSO in each classroom in the foundation area.
Yeah. All day?
All day.
All day.
Yes. Yep.
Which is, Tamara, a great support.
It's been brilliant.
Yes. Yeah.
It builds the foundation of all your expectations and just the support you can get on a day in, day out basis of where it's needed.
Yeah. And I think that's part of, like, you two working together as a pair. You know how you work together, and then you have built, I'm not just saying this year, but this year in particular, you've really started the year with this really strong notion of building this community of writers in the room. And the heads are nodding furiously here.
Yeah.
You can't see that, but I'm letting you know that, and that's been the big work, and really from day one. So today we're really going to explore how you've really set up this really strong culture of every child feeling from day one that they are a writer. And we know the big spin-off for that has also been how much they feel they are also the reader. You know, we really want to dive in. There's so many great things to dive into here that for people who might be starting with a foundation class, we want the inside, goss on the kinds of things you've done that have really built that really strong sense of community. And you are an important part of that because both of you together, you work as a team, and that's part of the power, I think, that builds community. But how you build community and how you get your children feeling like, I am a writer from the beginning, no questions asked. So strap yourselves in, everybody. This is going to be a cracking episode. Right. Phil, do you want to say something?
And I'm really interested in the connection between the reading and the writing too. That,
Yeah.
you know, it changes what's happening in reading as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let's go first to the writing. Can you think back to the very beginning, the beginning of the year? Yes, because routines around it are so strong. All right, over to you.
Okay. So we had a huge focus at the start of the year on names, on their names and the ownership of their name, and just exploring that basically. That was the first port of call, as well as reading lots of books, but we'll go back to that part.
Yeah.
So basically we had name tags on their desks to start with. We had write and wipe tracing sheets of their names. We had painting and decorating names, alphabetical ordering tasks. Like, it was all based on their names basically, all these activities that they were able to explore what their name was, being able to recognise it, the letters that were in there. It was all about that. So it was a huge ownership for them. This is my name and this is where it goes. And we then worked on a class book introducing each person. So this is Eden, for example, and they had a picture of them. So then we would share that book together. So everyone was getting to know everyone else's names. We then had a role in the morning where it had a photo. So originally they were using the photos, but then we've changed it also to just their names so they can each recognise each other's names.
Yes.
So that's how it all started originally. And then we used class books as a way of exploring writing and us being able to be writers as well.
Yeah.
So
Can I slow you down? Just
Am I
right
talking
here.
really fast?
No. I'm just going to, there's some things that we're just going to expand out a little bit, like that beautiful notion of right from the beginning. So you've described that the first class book that was made was a book of their names. So because class books are just such an important part of this whole process, can you just, whether you can remember, I know you've made so many class books, what does it look like when you make a class book?
Well, each child basically gets a page in the book. That's their ownership of their own work. They can, be imaginative and creative with that page. Normally at the start we have, say, a sentence to say, like a lead-in sentence that if they can write, they could write the remaining part of the sentence, or we can then scribe for them if needed. So it might be, this is Eden, I like something that you like. So you're able to share something about yourself, and it's introducing that person. Another one we did was we read the story When I Grow Up by Andrew Daddo, and they then each got to choose something they would like to be when they grow up. So it was, when I grow up, I want to be, and then we scribed what they wanted to be, but they got to do all the illustrations. Yeah. So they each got a page in the book.
And what size page? An A4 size?
We mix it. Sometimes we've done A3s. We did start off as A4s. Some we've just photocopied into bigger books. The A4s are easier to bind at school, so that's why we generally use the A4s.
Nice.
And then they go into our own class library as well. So the children have their own library within the classroom that draws them in to seeing that they are little authors and writers themselves.
Yes. So those books coming in, so you've actually got a special place in the classroom for those, haven't you? Yeah. So a dedicated library for the books we've made. So number one, there's the whole community feel being built, that there's all these books, that every one of us is in every one of those books.
Yeah.
So they go on display. And when do children engage with those books?
It's generally between transition times. So if they've finished their work and they want to go read a book, they go and get that off the shelf. If they're finished eating, at the end of eating breaks, they'll go and read those books, and they will be the first books they choose, is the books that we've made within the classroom.
Yeah.
And further along, they actually started to get them as their second choice books in their reading conference times.
Wow.
As well.
Yes. Yeah. So big connection to them. And then this revisiting of those books because they just hold so much meaning for them, don't they?
Yeah.
Now, people are going to be so interested in this because I remember after the first term, Tamara, you told me how many books you had made with the class in 11 weeks. How many was it?
Oh, I don't know now.
Oh, I remember.
It was a good 20 odd.
Yeah.
There was more than that probably.
Yeah. I think by week 9, you said we've made 14 books.
Yeah. Not all bound,
No, but the
but creative
volume.
and
Yeah, the volume of things. So let's talk a bit. So you made a name book. You've done some innovations on, so things like when I grow up, here's for each child to then add what they want to be when they grow up. Yes. So were there any other books you did innovations on that you remember?
So we did our school follows PBS, so we did PBS expectations, so expectations within the school, behaviour, what's expected of us in the yard, how to make a friend.
Then we actually went into our maths as well. So we created number books and the directional books. So if I'm standing in front of something, on top of something, using their illustrations and their labelling as well. So not just within our writing workshops, taking and exploring it through the whole day.
Yeah.
I think we also made a family book. So it was my family, and then they did family pictures and their pets and that sort of thing, because then each person could share who was in their family and what their family was made up of. So
Yeah.
We've got several sitting in front of us.
Yes.
as well.
Yes. Yeah. There's people can't see those, but yes, have a little bit of a look through, because one thing that was absolutely or has been absolutely apparent to me during the year is that whenever I see either of you, it's like, oh, guess what we've just made a book on. Like you see how anything can be transformed into a book. And of course, if it's not a book and it's just loose pages, that where do they go? You know, what's their life beyond that? You must feel that with so many books being made, with every book having a life well beyond that day or that lesson, then you've already talked about that they'll read it during, after eating time, or I think even in the mornings when they come in, some of them are collecting books. It's a space, you've got a dedicated space for it, and so children are engaging with it. All right, this bundle that you've got here, let's just tell us, what have you got in this bundle?
So we also made one that I missed was a caring for country book. So how do we care for our country? And then we linked it to our acknowledgement of country that we do in the morning. So they each did a page on what their thoughts were of caring for our country. We've said the when I grow up. We also had I can make friends. We've got a Eric Carle inspired Let's Count. So we did his watercolours and then made pictures for each child and then did numbers, and that was linked to insects. So we've done that as well. We had the Very Hungry Caterpillar. We made our own books of the Very Hungry Caterpillar.
The most recent is the Ladybird books, which is an information report style book, where they label, introduce the habitat, the appearance, diet, all about a ladybug, and share it with their friends in the classroom.
All right, so we're talking class book?
This moved to individual. Sorry.
No, this is nice. So lots of class book making.
Yes.
20 or more in that first 11 weeks of school. And yes, where did it go from there? Where did you start seeing or hearing children say, can I make my own? Is that what came next, or did you guide that first?
Well, every opportunity after producing the class books, if we had blank paper that could be stapled together, they wanted to make something into a book and put their name on the front page by Eden or Adele, and having that ownership that they've taken something, and even taking it home or asking to put it back in the shelf so someone can pick it up tomorrow. Yeah.
So what space or tools did you provide for children to be able to do that?
as a staple now in the classroom, we have stapled paper together so that whenever they would like to make a book, they can. So we have play in the afternoons. You'll find probably over half the class sometimes are there making their own books, and that's their own creative choice with bookmaking. We always have texters, crayons, pencils always available so they can use those. They also love going to the class library, getting those books out, and sometimes they'll copy those books that we've previously made, so they'll just make their own version rather than a class version. So they seem to be a lot of it's just basically free for all. You can choose the resources that are in the class and available. We make them available at all times so that when it is time to do that sort of thing, they can just go and get the tools themselves.
There's a huge volume of writing going on during the day and also in literacy sessions. Initially, when you first did this, did they wonder about how they were going to get started, or was it they just got into it?
I think we'd made enough class books that they actually had the confidence and knowledge to start their own book. They knew how to start it. They knew they needed a front cover, and they took it on their own tangent to begin making it.
And they've got the way they form letters. There's guides for that, or
so we have alphabet charts that are available to them. There's also the word wall that we have high frequency words on, as well as all their names under the alphabet letters. They can also ask us to write on whiteboards for them if they wanted a particular word. Some of them would just do lots of illustrations and then we would scribe the story for them. That's how it started out a lot to begin with, whereas we're finding it now they will have a go at trying to write the words themselves, even if it's just the initial sound.
Well, that's going to say you always encourage just a label. So if it was the initial sound, with the labelling of any illustration that went into a book, and then we carry on helping with the whiteboard or sounding out a word, even using the blending techniques in class.
Yeah, absolutely. So that lovely connection of the work that you're doing with listening for the sound, recognising what letter, matching that to which letter can be making that sound. So all that phonic work that you're doing and phonological awareness is playing out. You're using the exact same language as they are working on their writing. How can we blend those letters? How can we, what letters do we hear? So complete link between the two.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They were using those strategies to then write their books.
Yes.
So they're transferring it from the word work sessions to then their writing.
Yeah. Have you found that you have, are there any what you would call reluctant writers in your class?
There definitely was. I think there is in every class.
There absolutely is in every class. But how do you feel like you've got them in?
Illustrations.
That was definitely the catch, sorry.
Yeah.
Definitely the catch. The illustrations have just grown and they're more creative, they're more imaginative, and now they want to attempt to write. So it was
talking about it as well. Sorry. Yeah, they love to talk about their pictures. So encouraging them not only with their talking and discussing the detail, putting that into their words and writing it down with us because they want to share it.
Yes. Now, I have a clear memory of the last day I was in your room. I don't know if it was the last time, but one time in your room, it was the Eric Carle phase. Mm-hmm. And they were looking, is it Mr. Seahorse? Yes, it was. And you really only got them to focus on a page.
Correct.
You'd read the book a number of times, but here we were on one page and they were drawing with detail and using their language to describe what they were drawing. Now, that was 5-year-olds using exquisite language around that of things they'd noticed. And that's a big word that is used a lot at Mount Barker South Primary is what do we notice, both in illustrations, in what we're reading, in maths, in all areas. But you remember that day, don't you?
I do, yes. Mm-hmm.
And, we had, that things were, like reedy or The only one.
Oh, there was vibrant. One of the children used vibrant.
Yes.
Yeah, for a fish that was described in the book as well. Vibrant colours.
Yeah.
The language started to change.
Yeah.
Quite dramatically.
So the illustrations and the noticings that they were doing to create illustrations really started building a lot of oral rehearsal. So a lot of language use, a lot of, if this is what I'm talking about, what I'm noticing, this is what I'm going to say in it. And then they knew instantly that they could write it. And there were a lot of children that day that were labelling all of the things that they were drawing and having a go at it. You know, I remember that day being utterly astounded by, I'm just having a go. Mm-hmm. No one relying on anyone, no adult in the room to go, well, I don't know how to have a go at that.
Every student had a go that day.
Yes.
Everyone was participating and having a try at the task.
Yes. Yeah.
But the classroom culture is that.
Yes.
I think it's by term 2 there was a real culture of everyone sitting next to a friend in the class, which is always rotated as well. They don't sit next to the same person, and having the language to talk to their friend about what they're doing at the table and being expressive about what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also going to reference that day because some other things happened on that day that are part of the great story of you two working together. So Tamara's done all the, talking about the, having the page, the carefully selected page from Eric Carle and all our noticings and deep and meaningful noticings that they've got. So back to their tables, they're like little professors going back, ready to write, ready to draw. What's Hayley doing? Not only has she got eyes on that right now, she's at the back of the room. She's pulling out coloured paper from drawers and just...
I love painting.
Yes. Now, I want you to talk a little bit about that, Hayley, because, I know. Because you built in, as part of the Eric Carle unit, this idea that... just tell us the activities that you did illustration-wise and the papers that you created that they could work with over time.
So as a class with Tamara, she gives me a little bit of freedom, only a little bit, that we studied Eric Carle and an author study around his books, and that he's also the illustrator and what he uses to illustrate his marvellous books, and why can't we do it? So Tamara walks in with some nice huge pieces of blank paper for me and watercolours and went, here you go. So all the children got to splash across the A3 paper these marvellous colours that we then created so many book covers from their own characters and illustrated even more content, and it was beautiful, and we've got them displayed everywhere.
Yes, yeah. You made posters with, was it? Oh, yes, these here. So this relevance, not only have they created this paper and known why they've created it, like an illustrator would do, but yes, I just love this. Back goes Hayley. She's beavering around in these drawers of papers to bring out what can be used again, and children marveling at I helped make these papers, and it doesn't matter whose I'm using. It's just we've got now this
it was
magical
a big collection
of all these rich and gorgeous coloured papers. So
it went on for weeks. There was illustrations left, right, and centre with this paper.
Yeah,
they loved it,
and it also allowed their drawings to become bigger and bolder because they came in very like tiny images, restricted, but we gave them the opportunity to draw things huge and bold.
We said you need to take up the whole bit of paper. We don't want to see this tiny little picture down in the bottom hand corner. We had this massive big paper and we wanted to see what you could draw.
Yes. Yeah. So, and of course that author study with Eric Carle, was that a beginning of year? No.
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
That's where you began, was with Eric Carle. So along they went on the journey with the writer, the illustrator, and then being the reader of those things. Yeah. Fantastic.
So the kids getting into the reading of their books, how's that progressed through the year? You know, is it going, more reading going on because of all this work with the writing? Or?
Absolutely. We started off obviously reading lots of class books as well as picture books. So we read our class books as a class so that we could become familiar with the simple sentences that were in those books. And then we also read lots of picture books to expose them. We encouraged families to be reading picture books every night with their children. We had readers that would go home as well, but we did try and focus on really just enjoying the pictures and the illustrations and what do you think this book is about, and discussing that with students first.
Yeah.
Just enjoying books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Enjoying it, not being daunted by all the writing that they see.
Yes.
Talking about what they can see initially, and then going into them being quite excited when they could recognise the first sounds in things, or if it was actually a letter that was in their name. And what an exciting moment that was when they just point to them on different pages.
So by starting with all that enjoyment and being aware of what a book is and how it works and all that sort of thing first, and then those skills started to come as things went on?
Yeah,
yep.
It linked in a lot with our word work and doing the first sounds, like learning the initial sound of a word.
Yep.
If we're doing S for the day, they would then go and search for S's in books, and then they would link it with their name. There was a lot of that. There was just creating that enjoyment of reading and that want to read, that real love. I want to do it.
Yeah. And you valuing so highly that is part of being an early reader, that they are essential dispositions to being a reader. That means exploring books, talking, listening to books being read, engaging in conversation about the meaning of those stories. And that's where, that really strong writing community that you built was really absolutely alongside of that was this really strong we are all readers as well happening. Heads have just about nodded off here. Like this is so true. It was so evident to walk into your classroom at any time is to see highly engaged readers and writers, children who absolutely know that they are well and truly on the road.
Even at the start, when we'd make our class books or even when we were making their individual books, they'd love sharing them with people. Even if they weren't actually reading the words, it was retelling what they'd drawn, retelling their own story and what they were sharing. Our principal would come in and we'd share our stories with her. We had so we got lent animals from the education department. So we had the guinea pigs come into our classroom, and then we made the adventures of Mocha and Chai. They were the names of the guinea pigs. And then we showed the principal. We got her to come down and look at us. We were sketching the guinea pigs while we were watching them in their cage. And then they each got to make their adventure of Mocha and Chai. So they got to make their own stories about the two guinea pigs, and then we were sharing them with each other.
Yeah. And this is that, the rich experiences, you capitalise on all of those. Not just rich experiences, some of the everyday things that are happening too, but, that link to making books about family. But I had forgotten about Mocha and Chai. You messaged me that day.
I did.
We've just made, and children just upping with, making my own story about that. Off they go. Now so we are currently in Australia in term 3. That was happening in term 2.
It was.
So they are still very new. They're still new to school, they're still in their first half of the year for school. And here they are going, we're making our own books. Got my own story about 2 guinea pigs that have come in, noticed all of these things. So there is a real energy and a willingness and a can-do. Now, I know you mentioned this briefly before, but you had quite a strong morning routine and a morning book,
Yes.
maybe?
Another book
Another book.
with another front cover from Eric Carle. Paper. But it was their ownership again. So this wasn't just a activity book that they got in the morning. This was their special book again with their front cover and illustration.
Now, what went in the morning book and what is the morning routine? Because it's still going.
Yes.
Yes, right.
Tamara.
It definitely has transformed from the start of the year.
Yes.
So we started off basically with names, and some of them were tracing names, some of them when they're writing their own names. It was a little bit varied depending on their skill level. And then it moved on to, they were practicing their letters.
Yes.
And then we moved on to CVC words for those. So we kept it varied. If they were still on their names, we kept them going on their names. We sort of progressed them as they were showing the skills to be able to do the CVC words, or just still on their letters, or however it was. We've actually then moved to, so we've moved on to like this sort of thing, and then they'll write it, and then they're blending it, then drawing it.
Yes.
So there's a little sort of thing that they're doing with that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how-
Because you're very mindful of making the things that they're doing for them to see that there's purpose in it, and how by doing that, I'm then, in this instance, if I'm reading the word and then I'm writing the word, plus I'm drawing something to go with it, I've worked through a process of not just reading a word, but knowing how to write it for myself and showing the meaning of the word. So you're getting three things in there, and I think that's been such a powerful connector to the work that you're doing, that it's not just giving this singular thing, just do this and then I ticked off, that's done. It's actually thinking it through into how am I using that as a reader, or what am I understanding about that as a reader, and what am I doing with that as a writer?
Correct.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then we've been using some of these words for their morning message. So we have our little blackboard at the back of the room with the date and the day, and there's also a morning message to our star of the day, which will include one of these words or the digraphs we're using or practicing during the day. And they stand and blend and be quite cheerful in the morning when they've succeeded in what their little message is.
So
Right.
they
So
chant the
Star
morning
of the Day.
Yeah,
Star of the Day. How's Star of the Day chosen?
by the roll.
Oh, okay.
Alphabetical order.
Yes. Right. So moving
Yes.
down the alphabet.
Yes.
So every child knows. Some children will have already worked out when their day is coming, I'm
Yes.
sure, because
they are well aware.
yeah.
And this has worked really well since implementing, what was it, term 1 and 2, the check-in system of recognising their name. So our messages were a little bit more simple, just with a good morning and the student's name. And now we're actually moving into little messages with these words in them.
Wow. So the Star of the Day has a personal message.
Yeah.
Blow me down.
And then the whole class chants it in the morning. So when they've worked out the sentence, they'll chant the message.
That's great.
That is so cool.
And we'll take a break there from part 1 of our podcast. We look forward to you joining us for part 2. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.